Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a week of Linux news for the 2nd of July 2017. Well, what a busy week it has been for security. We've had loads of UK Parliament email addresses hacked. We've had a new WannaCry-like worm with Petya, no, not Petya, a Petya-like virus, but we'll go into that later in the news. And just for Linux users, we have a systemd vulnerability, one that's been around for, nearly a year. Oh dear, what a shame. So it started off in systemd version 2.2.3 right through to version 2.3.3. And this is the article from Ubuntu. So a security issue that affects Ubuntu and all its derivatives from 16.10 to 17.04. Note the long-term support release is not vulnerable because it predates the bad coding or vulnerability, whatever you would like to call it really. So details: an out-of-bounds write was discovered in the systemd resolved when handling a specially crafted DNS response. A remote attacker could potentially exploit this to cause a denial of service, daemon crash, or execute arbitrary code, and the vulnerability has been nicknamed the Common Vulnerabilities Exposure Number of CVE 2017-9445. And updates have been released, so just simply apply them for your Linux distribution. This is a little bit more detail about it. So in systemd through version 2.3.3, well, it's actually started in version 2.2.3, certain sizes past a DNS package new in systemd resolved can cause it to allocate a buffer that's too small. A malicious DNS server can exploit this via a response with a specially crafted TCP payload to trick systemd resolved into allocating a buffer that's too small and subsequently write arbitrary data beyond the end of it. So a buffer overflow attack. Yes, those can be fairly lethal because you can push instructions into the CPU or shellcode into the CPU and make it do something it should not do. Perhaps something that's going to elevate privileges to root and bring down a second stage item of malware and get it installed. Yes, all these are possible and it does not require interaction from the user. What it does require interaction with is a malicious DNS server. But I have not seen any evidence that the vulnerability has actually been exploited in the wild. This is purely theoretical, and we're taking precautions right now by patching the versions of systemd. System76, a company which sells Linux computers, has apparently had enough of Ubuntu. They have announced their own Linux distribution called Pop OS. Pop Bang OS. Pop OS. Who knows? So this article is from Fossbytes. So Pop OS is based on Ubuntu GNOME, and this is the alpha version. The final release of Pop OS will be shipped on October 19th, 2017, so an alternative to the upcoming Ubuntu 17.10 release, which will also be using GNOME. Wait, why have they gone down this route? It can't be because they don't like GNOME. It seems like a case of not being happy with the current selection of Ubuntu distros and thinking they can solve the problem by creating another one. So shedding more light on Pop OS, their website writes that it's designed for creators and aims to serve the complicated and professional needs of the users. The Pop OS stays out of the way while offering extensive customization to perfect your workflow. From the first look, Pop OS looks like a nice, clean-looking modern operating system which borrows a lot from GNOME Shell. Coming back to System76's relationship with GNOME, after Canonical announced that Ubuntu is making a shift to GNOME and ditch Unity, System76 was bound to get affected. The company's business depended a lot on Ubuntu, and it had to take some concrete decision to make sure the fans weren't looking for some other alternative. Again, I ask, why does it need a new distribution? Stylize GNOME to look like Unity, you can stylize KDE to look like Unity. I guess I'm trying to make a lot of decisions without seeing the interface, but here it is. And what's the difference? That looks exactly like GNOME in that screenshot. That is GNOME in that screenshot. Okay, we'll wait and see what happens before drawing more of a conclusion. So, talking about Ubuntu Artful Aardvark Alpha 1 has been released. This is the upcoming Ubuntu 17.10 release. Not all releases of Ubuntu are taking part in the alpha, so we have Lubuntu, Lubuntu Next. Well, Lubuntu Next is going to be the LXQt release, which I've taken a quick look at in the past. We have Ubuntu Kylin and Kubuntu. Anything much about Lubuntu? Nothing too interesting really, there's a couple of known bugs already. Lubuntu Next. This is going to be the more interesting one with the LXQt release. So known problems, that's quite a long list there, so Perhaps you may not want to rush into that version yet. Well, by all means mess around with it on a virtual machine, but perhaps not a production machine. Kubuntu, so I'll imagine we'll be on Plasma 5.10.3. Just taking a guess, because that is the current release. And we have KDE applications 16.12.3. Doesn't look like anything too major there on the bugs, but we do have Kubuntu desktop inconsistency and integration issues, scroll bars, GTK3 button placement also not integrated. Well, that's funny, they seem to be working absolutely fine in KDE Neon. By the way, I have not checked what desktop Ubuntu Kylin are using. Since they used to use Unity, well, so I guess they're using GNOME as well, but I'm taking a complete guess there, I don't know. So does company GR Security. GR Security adds confidence to containers, and GR Security ends code reuse, so offering security hardening to the Linux kernel. So what has Linus Torvalds said about them? Well, from the register, Linus Torvalds slams pure garbage from clowns at GR Security. I stopped trying to be polite about their BS, says Torvalds, who plans Linux 4.12 release for next week. And looking down at what has been said, Torvalds last week waded into a kernel mailing list thread titled Large Stack Gap Between VMAS that addressed the kind of memory messes last week revealed as a persistent Nix security issue. As the thread burbled along, a developer named Andy Lutomiski asked, "Has anyone checked how GR Security deals with this? I think they have a large stack guard gap." Here's Torvalds' response: "Don't bother with GR Security. Their approach has always been, we don't care if we break anything, we'll just claim it's because we're extra secure. The thing is a joke, they are clowns. When they started talking about people taking advantage of them, I stopped trying to be polite about their bullshit. Their patches are pure garbage. Tell us what you really think next time, Linus. Yes, please do, it is hilarious." Also from the register, shadow brokers hike prices for stolen NSA exploits and threaten to out ex-Uncle Sam hacker. Also starts mysterious VIP service for $130,000 US. So shadow brokers are once again trying to sell yet more stolen NSA cyber weapons, raising the asking price in the process. The gang has threatened to out one of the US spy agency's ex-operatives that it claims hacked Chinese targets. Wow, I wonder what other goodies the NSA have up their sleeve. Because that WannaCry drama, as they so rightly title here in the register, did cause absolute chaos, and wow, and there was nothing quiet and discreet about the exploit. It went all out and targeted the National Health Service in the United Kingdom, as well as many large organisations, but didn't do particularly well, as I've argued before. That was all thanks to the NSA tools released by shadow brokers. So I almost dread to think what is going to happen next. And the final article I'm taking from the register, I've taken quite a few this week. Humanity is doomed. We watch 45 billion hours of YouTube a month. And that's just the stuff Google can count on mobile devices. Wow, it's going to be quite a lot. So how much of that is mine? Well, not quite 45 billion hours, but yeah, close to it. No, I'm way off. So 1.5 billion logged in viewers visit YouTube every single month. And on average, viewers spend over an hour a day watching YouTube on mobile devices alone. Do the math, and over a month that means people spend at least 45 billion hours staring at YouTube on tiny, tiny screens. And that's just logged in people on mobile devices. Add in the dozen or so people that Google can no longer ID, Facebook vids, and those YouTubing on desktops and laptops, smaller audiences on Vimeo, and hordes on Netflix. And well, let's put the calculator down now before it all gets too depressing. Yeah, fair one. I know the watch time on my own channel has gone over 1 million minutes a month. It's down a little bit lately because I haven't been doing so many long or popular videos, but yeah, quite a lot of time spent on YouTube and other platforms. From Softpedia, the first Calamares 3.1 installer point release is out to improve salting for user passwords. So Calamares version 3.1.1 is now available for OS integrators who want to ship it for their upcoming ISO snapshots. And it looks like it includes salting improvements for user passwords, better support for very small screens with a 800 by 600 potato-sized resolutions, and adds the Crash Reporter debugging facility for the first time in the release tarball. This point release also implements new functionality that guesses the system language, keyboard layout, and other locale settings based on the language and location chosen by the user during the installation. Additionally, it adds support for using host names that contain up to 63 characters, conforming to various LDAP schemes and RFC 1123. So will that mean I can now put a proper domain name at install time? Because that's been one thing that's really annoyed me about the Calamares installer. But other than that, it's a pretty good installer and does its job. So I mentioned earlier in the video about the Petya malware. So it's been spreading across Europe, and Wired have done some explanation about it. It's been a bit difficult to find a decent explanation really, but okay, here we have a picture from Symantec that says, "Oops, your important files are encrypted." And I did quite like the layout there. That looks like an old style terminal with a nice red and black screen. So a new strain of malicious code dubbed Petya, often referred to as Petrap and not Petya, was first spotted encrypting computers in the Ukraine, before reportedly infecting systems in Spain, Germany, Israel, UK, Netherlands and the US, but mostly against the Ukraine. So although it was designed to look like Petya, as some people have pointed out though, Petya was out quite a while back. The Bitcoin wallets listed in the demand has received multiple payments with a relatively paltry sum of £5,800. It's not going to be much different from the number in US dollars, perhaps maybe off the top of my head, maybe about $6,000 US. However, email client Postio, which hosts the account where Bitcoin payments are being sent, has closed the address listed in the ransom note. This effectively means those who want to pay the ransom can't. In a statement, the German firm says it does not tolerate any misuse of our platform. Now, as far as I've heard, the decryption didn't even work. It was more of a wipe out the system entirely. And it spread in a similar method to WannaCry, using the Eternal Blue tool which was pilfered from the NSA. So using the same vulnerabilities as WannaCry, which effectively means that all these companies had failed to apply the updates to Windows, even after the massive warnings and massive reports about companies being hit by WannaCry. I mean, that just absolutely baffles me on so many levels. You've got a worm spreading around the world, in the headlines, people needed to apply the updates from February or March, and have completely failed. And they've also left port 445, which is Windows SMB, open to the internet. Wow, I think anyone who was hit by this really deserved it, because they just clearly cannot take care of their own network. And for this week's stupid news, I had to take another article from Pseudo-Satirical. New FreeBSD user sees himself as tech king of the household. Seated upon his throne from IKEA that he received as a gift from his mother to help support his back during the homework hours, local free software enthusiast Jonathan Goodspeed gazed around the room at the light emitted from his newly installed FreeBSD desktop, which showered him in undisputed glory, say reports. "I've moved far beyond even Linux," he says with a casual smirk as he wrestled with the keyboard, seemingly trying to run Steam, only to be met with a long list of errors. "I run FreeBSD now, a proper complete operating system where everything stays sane and consistent. None of this constantly changing bullcrap, no billions of different init systems. Whoa. I don't need Linux at all anymore. Now if I can just get this compatibility layer going, I'll get Steam for Linux running." Mr. Goodspeed believed he has now surpassed everyone else in the household, who he labels pathetic normie corporate-controlled slavey plebs, as they run everyday operating systems such as Microsoft Windows and Apple's Mac OS. Ugh. Even Linux got a bit too popular. FreeBSD is like the new Linux, before it got swamped by normies. Some of my family members still run Windows. Man, do I feel sorry for them. A couple of them do run Mac OS, which, did you know, is actually technically a kind of BSD, but it has all that walled garden stuff on top. It's like a BSD system for users who like being sexually assaulted by powerful corporations, so it still kind of sucks. Oh, very good. Yeah. Well, that concludes the week of Linux news. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.